In this episode, we turn the spotlight inward and talk about what happens when the audit function itself starts using AI to plan work, analyze evidence, and communicate results. This topic can feel a little strange at first, because auditing is often framed as the group that checks everyone else, not the group that needs checking. But the moment auditors use AI tools, the audit process gains new capabilities and also inherits new risks, and those risks can affect credibility, independence, and evidence quality. For brand new learners, the key idea is that using AI in auditing is not automatically good or automatically bad. It is a change in how work is done, and like any change, it needs risk evaluation and controls so the benefits do not come with unacceptable downsides. When an organization says it is integrating AI into audit, an auditor should be able to explain what could go wrong, what safeguards are needed, and how to demonstrate that judgment and accountability remain human. By the end, you should have a clear mental model of the impacts, the risks, and the types of controls that help keep AI-assisted auditing defensible. Before we continue, a quick note. This audio course is a companion to our course companion books. The first book is about the exam and provides detailed information on how to pass it best. The second book is a Kindle-only ebook that contains 1,000 flashcards that can be used on your mobile device or Kindle. Check them both out at cyber.author.me in the Bare Metal Study Guide series. The first impact of using AI in audit is speed, because AI can summarize large amounts of text, scan for patterns, and draft content quickly. Speed can be a genuine benefit, but speed can also hide risk because fast work can encourage shallow verification. If an AI system produces a summary of evidence, auditors might be tempted to accept the summary instead of verifying the underlying source material, and that can lead to mistakes or missed context. Another impact is scale, meaning the audit team might review more artifacts, more logs, or more documentation than before. Scale can improve coverage, but it can also create a false sense of completeness if the extra coverage is not matched by careful interpretation. A third impact is consistency, because AI can apply the same pattern of analysis repeatedly across many items. Consistency can reduce human fatigue errors, but it can also repeat the same AI mistake across a large population, which can be harder to notice. Evaluating impacts starts by recognizing these trade-offs and resisting the idea that more speed and scale automatically mean better assurance. One major risk area is evidence integrity, which means the audit team must be confident that what it is relying on is accurate, complete, and traceable to real sources. If AI is used to extract facts from documents or logs, the audit team must be able to verify those facts back to the original records. If AI is used to classify issues or rank risks, the team must understand what criteria drove those outputs and whether those criteria match audit standards. AI can produce outputs that sound confident even when they are wrong, and that is dangerous in an audit context because audits require defensible conclusions. This is why traceability matters so much. You want a clear path from a report statement back to the evidence that supports it. If AI makes that path blurry, the audit function's credibility suffers. When integrating AI, auditors evaluate whether it strengthens evidence handling or weakens it through opacity. Another risk is confidentiality and data governance, because audits often handle sensitive information. Audit work can include employee data, customer information, security details, and internal control weaknesses, all of which require careful handling. If auditors use AI systems that transmit data outside controlled environments or retain data in ways the audit function cannot manage, the audit process itself can become a data leakage risk. Even without focusing on specific tools, the principle is clear. Audit data must be handled according to strict rules, and any AI assistance must comply with those rules. Evaluating risk here involves understanding where audit inputs go, how they are stored, and who can access them. It also involves minimizing exposure by using only what is necessary, reducing sensitive content in prompts or queries, and ensuring outputs do not include unnecessary sensitive details. From a governance standpoint, an audit team that fails to protect its own data undermines its authority to evaluate others' controls. Independence and objectivity are also at risk if AI is used in ways that blur accountability. Auditors are expected to apply professional judgment, challenge assumptions, and remain skeptical even when management is confident. If an audit team begins to rely on AI recommendations as if they are authoritative, it can weaken independent thinking and reduce the willingness to ask hard questions. A related risk is automation bias, which is the tendency to trust an automated suggestion more than a human judgment, especially when the suggestion is presented confidently. In auditing, that bias can lead to accepting weak explanations, missing contradictions, or downplaying risk because an AI output framed something as low severity. Evaluating this risk means checking how AI outputs are used in decisions, whether auditors are trained to treat AI as an assistant rather than an authority, and whether review processes require humans to validate key conclusions. The more the audit process depends on AI outputs for judgment calls, the higher the risk to independence. Another important risk is model error and drift, because the AI system used by auditors can change over time or behave differently across cases. If the audit team builds a workflow around an AI assistant and the assistant's behavior changes, the audit team might not notice immediately. That could lead to inconsistent analyses across audit periods, inconsistent wording in reports, or inconsistent interpretation of control evidence. Auditors therefore need a way to ensure that AI-assisted work remains consistent enough to be defensible, especially when comparing results across time. This does not require perfect stability, but it does require awareness of change and controls to manage it. For example, the audit function can define which types of tasks AI is allowed to support and which tasks require direct human work, and it can maintain internal guidance on how to verify AI outputs. It can also track when significant changes occur in the AI tool environment and adjust procedures accordingly. Evaluating risk includes recognizing that AI tools are not static and planning for that reality. The audit process can also be impacted by explainability and transparency needs. Audit work often has to be explained to executives, regulators, and sometimes courts, and explanations must be clear and grounded. If an audit team relies on AI to generate analyses but cannot explain how the analysis was reached, stakeholders may challenge the validity of the conclusions. This does not mean the audit team must understand every internal detail of an AI model, but it does mean the team must be able to explain its own process. What the AI did, what evidence the auditors reviewed, what checks were performed, and what human judgments were applied. A transparent process is one where the audit team can show that AI outputs were treated as inputs to human reasoning, not as final answers. Beginners should remember that in auditing, it is often better to have a slower, clearly explainable process than a faster, opaque one. Trust is the audit function's currency, and transparency protects that trust. When integrating AI into audit, a key evaluation step is deciding appropriate use cases, because not every audit task is a good candidate for AI assistance. Some tasks are well-suited, like summarizing long policy documents for quicker human review or helping organize a large set of evidence artifacts into categories. Other tasks are higher risk, like making final risk ratings, concluding whether a control is effective, or determining whether evidence is sufficient, because those require nuanced judgment and professional standards. Evaluating impacts means mapping AI assistance to tasks where it augments human work without replacing the critical thinking that makes auditing valuable. It also means being honest about limitations, such as the risk of missing subtle context, misreading a requirement, or producing plausible but incorrect statements. An audit function that defines clear boundaries for AI use is far more defensible than one that uses AI everywhere without discipline. Boundaries are a control in themselves because they prevent overreach. Controls for AI integration in audit often start with governance, documented policies for how AI may be used, what data may be provided, what verification is required, and who is accountable for outputs. Training is another control because auditors need to understand common failure patterns like confident errors and incomplete summaries. Quality assurance is also critical, meaning reviewers check that AI-assisted work remains accurate, consistent, and properly supported by evidence. Another control is documentation of the AI's role in the audit process, which helps demonstrate transparency and supports repeatability. The goal of these controls is not to create extra bureaucracy, but to keep the audit process credible and defensible. If the audit team uses AI to draft report language, for example, Reviewers should confirm that every key statement is backed by evidence and that the tone remains accurate and fair. When controls are designed well, AI becomes a productivity tool without becoming a risk amplifier. It is also important to evaluate the impact of AI on the relationship between auditors and audited teams. If audited teams believe the audit conclusions were generated by AI rather than by human judgment, they may challenge the legitimacy of findings or feel less engaged with remediation. That can slow down fixes and create friction. Audit teams can manage this by being transparent about how AI is used and emphasizing that accountability remains human. They can also ensure that conversations with teams focus on evidence and control outcomes, not on debates about what the AI said. Another relationship risk is overstandardization, where AI-generated language makes reports feel generic and less tailored to the organization's context. That can reduce executive attention and reduce the likelihood that teams take findings seriously. Evaluating impacts, therefore, includes thinking about communication quality, not just analytical efficiency. Finally, integrating AI into audit creates an opportunity for the audit function to model good governance. If auditors expect other teams to manage AI risks with policies, monitoring, and documentation, the audit function should hold itself to similar standards. This is not about perfection, but about credibility and leadership by example. The audit function can maintain its own inventory of AI-assisted workflows, define what data is used, track how outputs are verified, and periodically review whether the approach remains appropriate. It can also monitor for incidents, such as accidental disclosure or repeated AI errors, and improve controls based on what it learns. This approach turns AI integration into an internal control environment that can be evaluated, improved, and defended. For beginners, that is a powerful lesson. Governance is not something you demand only from others. It is something you practice in your own process. Evaluating impacts and risk when integrating AI into the audit process means balancing the benefits of speed, scale, and consistency against the risks to evidence integrity, confidentiality, independence, and transparency. The audit function must remain defensible, which requires traceability from conclusions to evidence, clear boundaries on what AI can and cannot do, and strong human review where judgment is required. It also requires protecting sensitive audit data, managing automation bias, and planning for changes in AI behavior over time. When governance, training, and quality assurance are designed well, AI can enhance audit effectiveness without outsourcing accountability. The audit process stays credible because humans remain responsible for what is concluded and why. That is the standard that keeps AI-assisted auditing from becoming a shortcut and turns it into a controlled improvement in how assurance work is delivered.
Thanks for listening. For more audio courses, daily newsletters, and more, please visit baremetalcyber.com.